show you got heart. Now we're playing the game and we're totally scoring. Learning how to make a virtue on a business boring. Showing up every morning, ready for the show. Don't engaging virtual meetings 2.0.
Happy almost New Year! This is John Chen here with the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, and excited here. If you're watching here on social media, make sure and hit subscribe, share, like, or comment. If you ask a question here or make a comment, we might give you a shout out live on air. In addition to that, if you want any of the episodes of the Engaging Virtual Meeting podcast, go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online and subscribe on any one of the 15 podcast locations that are your favorites. In addition to that, if you want to learn how to be more engaging in the world, come to our retreat. You take your phone out, scan this QR code, you can get a free ticket, or you can come in person here in Seattle, October 20th through the 22nd. Every attendee gets a 5-minute video on stage using 4 cameras and find out how to be more engaging in this 3-day retreat. Now, speaking of 3 days, one of my good friends, Anna Liata, said, I have to meet this person. And we're over dinner, and now I think I know the reasons why. Because when Anna says something, I just do it. And this next guest today on this program, I'm so excited for this new year, is to really share, what can you achieve in 2026? Because she's achieved a lot. She's a leadership advisor to boards, owners, and C-suite teams. She's a strategic and succession planning consultant, keynote speaker, and author, and she is the first ever National Speakers Association's Dr. John B. Molidar Award winner. Please, let's welcome Liz Weber. Hello, Liz. How are you doing?
I'm great, John. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. I can't believe the year's almost over.
I know. It went by quick.
It went by quick, and then I don't know if you have this experience, Liz, where if you sit down and think about it and think about all the things that happened this year, that there's possibly a large and hopefully a good list.
There is always a large list, and someone taught me years ago is when you look back, you achieved way more than you ever thought possible, and quite often less than what you had hoped. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but got a lot done. Yeah.
Oh, I definitely love that quote. Well, of course, a few of my guests don't know who you are, Liz. So why don't you just take this moment and share who you are and what you do in the world?
Well, kind of dovetailing on what you shared in my intro, John, very simplistically, I'm a management consultant who also speaks and coaches. My clients are typically business owners, executives, leaders of companies, associations, government agencies. And most simplistically, I help them become better leaders by clarifying with them what they need to focus on to have the greatest impact and move things forward. So that's what I do in a nutshell. Spend a lot of my time in boardrooms and conference rooms talking with leaders and helping them identify those types of things.
Well, genius. And how did you get into that, Liz? I'm just curious, what was your path to getting into the boardroom?
As short of a story as I can tell you, John, I got my undergraduate degree in international business. I'm from a small farming town in Wisconsin, and I wanted to get out and do something wild. So I thought international business would be it. So in my undergrad course, I had a capstone class, and it was taught by this man named Jim Farrell, and he was this thing called a consultant. And he was not a professor, he was not a PhD, but he would share stories in our capstone about the work that he was doing with his clients to help them be better leaders. And he had to pull all aspects of what I had been studying together, from finance to marketing to HR to operations and logistics and everything. And he would help them figure out where their challenges were with their business, and then provide recommendations to them on what they could do to be more effective leaders. And then he'd leave and he'd work with other clients. He didn't have to do it himself. He'd leave and go on and help some more. And I just thought that would be the coolest thing ever. I'd never heard of it before. And so after I graduated, because I had no international experience, I couldn't get a job in Wisconsin, an international company. So I was in a catch-22. So I took an internship with the U.S. Department of State. And fortunately, I ended up in a business office, basically the State Department's version of the military commissary system.
Ooh.
So I was immediately thrust into a world where I was helping our Foreign Service officers and families and local nationals around the world get food products and alcohol and other things so that they could have a bit of home wherever they were stationed around the world. And everything that they were doing outside of work on the embassy compound or the consulate compound, excuse me, my office would help support so that
Hmm.
they could have a sanity break, they could get a health break outside of work. And
This is
that position very rapidly and through great good fortune put me in a consulting role from the time I was basically 24 years old. And so I did that for almost 10 years. And I just always knew I wanted to do my own thing. And so from there, luckily, with good advice, one of the consultants that we worked with in my office at the State Department, I shared with him what I wanted to do. And he said, Liz, that's a wonderful ambition, but you have no experience doing this on your own, so no one's really going to pay attention to you. Uh, start your own company, do something first, earn your chops, and then you'll be in a position to start advising people. So I did that. I started my company as a training company initially, did that for 10 years. And it was a tremendous proving ground to be in a training room from initially frontline to mid-level managers. And for you, John, or for any of your listeners that have ever been in that position, it's a great position to be in because number one, you get fed real life experience from the participants in the room. But when you're also able to train multiple levels of leaders, it's very easy to identify where the problems are. And so, without asking, I started offering my insights and ideas for upper management to resolve the issue. And I am so lucky that they listened to my input and then they started asking me to advise them and to help them with strategy. So I kind of worked my way into it and pulled my way into it a little bit.
Oh, it's fascinating, and I think you may have obviously a healthy respect, right, for our country's military and everybody who serves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it sounds like too, like this is long before people talk about mental health. Having those items, even though they're maybe somewhere across the world, that helps them feel comfortable. Those are, I think, important things. Things for instance, morale and again mental health in very very challenging situations. So interesting place to start out, Liz. Now, Liz, you received this award, this Dr. John B. Molidar Award, and I'm curious if you can tell us a little behind the scenes story. You shared a little bit behind with me in the last time that we got a chance to call. I'm just interested in what you could share about what it was like leading up to this award.
Well, as I shared with you briefly, John, when we spoke, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know it was in the works. I didn't know that my name was even, being tossed around as a potential recipient. Um, and this award was presented at the National Speakers Association CSP CPA Summit that had just recently happened. And I wasn't scheduled to attend. I had family obligations that we were already planning to hold that weekend. However, about a month before the ceremony, I received a phone call from a colleague of ours. Some of your listeners might know Sylvie DeGiusto, and Sylvie basically said, hello, and then she said, "Do you trust me?" And I don't know about you, John, but when that's the first thing out of someone's mouth, it's this weird mix of dread and excitement. Like this could be really good and also really scary.
Right.
But in all the time I've known Sylvie, she's never steered me wrong. So through nerves, I said yes. Why? And she said, you can't ask why. You just need to buy a ticket to Phoenix and be there on December 12th. And I was like, well, why? And she said, you can't ask me. And basically that was the gist of her just saying, trust me and be there. And so I did, and I showed up, and she told me where to meet her, and it was at the CSP Summit. I had kind of figured that out because I knew when the summit was going to happen, and so I knew something was going to happen. I must have been getting an award or something, but I couldn't figure out what it would be for because you don't typically give out awards at the summit.
Right.
So really, I was going in completely blind, and as I was talking to people before the kickoff of the summit, people were asking me, who I was planning on hanging with for the weekend. I said, I'm not even going to be here for the weekend, and had to explain, I don't know why I'm here. I'm just here because Sylvie told me to be here. So jump forward then to the summit starts, and they have the different presentations and activities and things like that. And then again, I'm like, I have no idea why I'm here. And then suddenly, Jamie Nolan, who is the executive director of the Speakers Association, gets up on stage along with Sylvie. And I'm thinking, okay, well, this has got to be it, whatever it is.
Oh, good.
And then they start explaining about this award and the criteria for the award. And I'm going in my head, oh my God. Um, oh my God, this must be it. I mean, and me? This is me? Because there's four criteria, four pillars to this award. And then they mention that John had basically asked that this be endowed and he created it. And as soon as they said John's name, it's like it all made perfect sense because of the
Oh.
criteria and the standards and the expectations and the process for how it would be awarded. Um, and then the recording of John introducing me, it was really quite lovely.
Do you have a name for the emotion, or is it indescribable uh, leading up to that?
Well, I said a number of times it was surreal because again, I honestly I had no clue. I didn't know why I was there other than I must have been getting some award for something which was not even typical for the summit. So I was just and full candor, John, I'm a control freak. So when I'm not in control, it's just like my head just starts buzzing, like I don't know how to process this. And then
Uh,
honestly, just the true emotion of knowing it was an award in John's honor, created by John.
yeah.
But then also when they shared that he was on FaceTime and was observing the whole thing, that was truly, truly special.
And I think you have the award there. Do you mind if you
I
show it?
I I do have the award.
Ready?
It's right
Three.
here. It's really quite lovely, and it's really quite heavy actually too. Um, yeah,
What Well, coming, of
yeah.
course, from Seattle, blown glass is a beautiful piece for
Uh-huh.
sure, and it looks like it was handmade or custom made, very likely. So,
Yeah. No, it's quite nice. Yeah.
and Liz, I'm going to go with the control freak part, right? I'm a recovering Virgo, right, which means right perfectionist, which is like
Mhm.
99% of our lives we're in control, so we know what's going on, especially when we're on stage. And I do think like things like the Cavett Award too, like they go through some serious dynamics to make sure that the person who's receiving the award doesn't know.
Hmm.
It's very
Yeah.
challenging, and that's challenging with people like Liz Weber, who like the fact that I think once they said John's name, the fact that you got it, of course, right? You're always looking for that, like, oh, okay, I now think I understand.
Yeah.
Think I
Yeah.
understand.
Absolutely.
So let me ask a couple questions around this. How did you meet, of course, our good friend Dr. John B. Molidar? What was that moment for you?
It's one of those moments, John, in your life where you always remember where you were, you always remember that particular incident. And I met John because I had just been named to the national board, and I was going to be attending my first national board meeting. And at the time when I was going to join the board, typically the way the onboarding process is because of the timing of the board meetings, as a new board member, your first meeting is actually the last meeting of the previous
Right.
board, their
Yeah.
outgoing meeting.
Right.
And then at the end of that meeting, then you have the swearing in ceremony for like the new board members. So I was attending my first meeting, and during our onboarding orientation, Ruby Newell Legner was also going to be joining the board at the same time I was. And we had been told at this board meeting, because you're not yet a board member, do not say anything. You cannot ask questions. You sit at a table in the back of the room. You can't vote yet because you're not a board member.
Right.
Your job is to just go in there, sit quietly in the back of the room, be professional and observe. And then once you're sworn in, then at the next board meeting, you can actively participate. So Ruby and I, being the good little newbies, were like, yes, 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 of course we get it. And that morning, she and I just happened to meet up, and we're walking into the boardroom together. And the first two people we meet when we walk in the door were Ed Garrity, and he was a board member at the time, and Dr. John B. Molidor.
Wow.
And we knew them, of course, by sight, but didn't really know them. And John, those two men literally threw open their arms to Ruby and I and hugged us. And as
Oh,
John was hugging me and welcoming us into the room, he said into my ear, I'm so glad you're here. Ask tons of questions. If you don't understand something, ask up. If you hear something that doesn't make sense, challenge it. He was telling me to do everything I had not been, primed
able to
to
do.
do. And
Right.
I thought either this guy is completely setting me up, or he's a prankster, or I don't know what's going on. But he had this twinkle in his eye as he said it. So it's like, I think he's joking, but I don't think he's joking. He wants people to stir things up and to try to move things forward.
Yeah.
So that was my first introduction to John. And I remember to this day that first board meeting, I asked a question from the back of the room, and the room kind of went, "Ooh," and John looked at me and winked. And I was like, I think we're going to get along just fine. So that was my first meeting of John.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. One of my early meetings, he was so kind to really take the time to meet my family that came out to in Denver when I received my CSP, and he just endeared himself to, of course, me and my family. Uh,
Hmm.
and he spent an inordinate amount of time. John B. Molidar is a busy person, and he just
Yeah.
was so present. And yeah, that's something my family still remembers to this day
Hmm.
about him.
Hmm. Yeah.
So what about you? What do you love and respect about John over the years? If you have any stories or anything around it, I'd love to hear. What do you love and
Oh,
respect about him?
there's so many different things. John is, as you alluded to, he's such a busy guy because he's got such a vast wealth of knowledge and experience and tenure with not only his work, with medicine and what he's done there, excuse me, but within the NSA community. And just a couple things I respect so much about John in working with him in NSA and the board in particular. He is this wonderful mix of brilliance, his insight, his professional background, his read of a current situation. He's so smart and he's so on track. But John also comes prepared. He never showed up at a board meeting where he did not have a notepad and a pen right in front of him. And he had a series of questions that he had prepared to to guide a conversation forward or to dig further that the board book wasn't making clear enough for him.
Hmm.
As anyone around the room would speak, John was always taking copious notes. John also had the joke that he and I still tease each other about is for anybody that's familiar with, recommended board procedure, you follow what are called Robert's Rules of Orders, which can be quite intimidating for many people. But John was adamant that the NSA board at the time when I was on the board start following Robert's rules, and he was getting some serious pushback. So he said, okay. He said, let me take them and rework them and make them more accessible so that they're more comfortable for the board. And he's like, he got the go ahead. And so he came back the next board meeting with what he called Bob's rules. And and Bob's rules, John, all he had done was he had taken Robert's Rules of Order and
Okay.
he had just simplified some of the language. So instead of having four syllables, it would have like two,
Right. Yeah.
but it were the same rules and it was the same procedures, but it was Bob's rules. And so he taught the NSA board at the time how to follow Bob's rules of orders. And it was this inside joke because for the longest time the board thought he had recreated these rules and really simplified them. And um, anyway, something like that is an example of John. He believes in process. He believes in the stability that it provides, in the guidance that it provides, the scalability that it provides, the
Mm.
educational opportunities that it provides, and the ease with which it allows you to get to an outcome.
It,
So he was
yeah.
masterful at that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
currently serving as a president of just our NSA Northwest board, and board work, what? Important, challenging, sometimes political,
Hmm.
and I don't know about you, Liz, but I think even in my little time of meeting you, right, I believe you're a person that's about bottom line results in the end,
Hmm.
right? Let's
Yeah.
stop messing around and let's either make this thing happen or stop talking about it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
is that,
it's one of the things that I've learned from my experience, particularly in volunteer roles with NSA and other organizations, but in the dedication and the art with which John brings process to so many things that he does is particularly in a volunteer leadership role. I
hmm,
found over the years, and I analyzed this by looking at the records of like NSADC when I was the chapter president. When you look at who volunteers heavily on a consistent basis, those individuals who have gotten really good at time management, so that when it's time to work on, NSA Northwest things, your time is chunked out, you focus on it, you get it done, you move on, and you go back to your business and generate income.
yes,
Those individuals who are not good at that, who spend an inordinate amount of time on their volunteer work, don't last in this business because their business falls apart because they're not generating income.
right.
And so it's one of the skills that I learned to fine tune because of intersecting with John
Hmm.
is the system, the process, the fun you can have with being clear on an objective, creating a process to help you get there, bringing people along to get to that outcome, and then getting to that outcome and moving on. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
I'm just curious if John Molidar has. So, for instance, I know that like artful delegation on a board is like one of the most important things. Like if you can get somebody else to volunteer in a role, sometimes they think it's their idea even, and that they lead through that thing. And that's actually how I think I made a lot of my goals this year as a president. I'm just curious if John Molidar has any board kind of Jedi mind tricks or things that you've seen over the past that might be valuable to know.
Well, John, as you well know, John Molidor's background is in neuroscience, so he knows the
Right.
brain, he knows how it works.
Right.
So,
Right.
there's not a lot that John does without thinking it through ahead of time. So,
Mm.
particularly on our time together on the Global Speakers Federation board, which is a global entity when you're dealing with very different ethnicities, different cultural biases, different cultural desires, different association objectives and things like that. John was incredibly intentional about ensuring that his outreach and the opportunities for connection across associations was intentional and was implemented in a way and communicated in a way that did not seem like it was, big NSA telling everybody what to do because he
Right.
wasn't representing NSA in his capacity as the president of the GSF.
Right.
He was representing the GSF,
Right.
but he needed to make sure that even though he wasn't representing that role. Technically, there was no perception that he was representing that role, and that he was creating an environment where all associations from around the world were welcomed and treated as equals and felt they were welcomed and treated as equals. And he did that masterfully. He really did that masterfully.
Mm, amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, the GSF is, again, was what,
Mhm.
like 17, 18 speaker associations around the world and
Mhm.
more. Uh,
Mhm.
and definitely one of the challenging parts of that. And huge opportunity, I think, because we do all have one thing in common, which is speaking. Uh,
Mhm.
what were some of the highlights for you that you think you earned you? or that you're proud of on the path to the John Molidar Award, right? You know, there's the four pillars. I'm just curious if you have any examples of that for you along your way.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because again, when I first was hearing or seeing this presented, again, I had no idea. So I'm watching these pillars appear on the slide, and the four pillars are, I had to look these up afterwards, John, because it was a blur in the moment. But the four pillars are data-driven decision making, commitment to process, integrity and professionalism, and emotional intelligence. So the first one on, data-driven decision making, um, I think this is really something that um, I learned and was further ingrained in me, I'll put it that way, in service on the NSA board. And I will credit Scott Helford for this
Mm,
because Scott is also a prominent, very successful member of the National Speakers Association. But when I was first on the board, Scott was also on the board. And I remember in one of the board meetings, I don't remember the specific topic of conversation, but I remember Scott interjected and asked a question. And the question was basically, for clarity's sake, are you stating this as your opinion, or do you have any data to back up what you just said? And he said it very kindly,
mhm.
but what it did in that instance was it clarified at that moment, at that time, it was apparent to me that what had been happening and what he had been witnessing before I got onto the board were decisions were being made by individual opinions versus data,
Yes.
which is very common. It's very
Yes.
common.
Right.
And so that whole idea of data-driven decision making was one of the things when I led a couple task forces for the national board when I was on the national board to dig through data to find out what were some of the trends, what were some of the tipping points, what were some of the data points that NSA was using to make decisions versus other associations that were making decisions. So that was one of the things that was apparent to, I would assume, the committee. Again, I don't know how I got the award, but I'm assuming to the committee, some of the task forces that I had led. As far as commitment to process, as we've shared, John is a master at creating process, but I love it. And
Mm.
there were countless times where, whether it would be with the NSA board, the GSF board, I was also on the foundation board and would obviously seek John's counsel in some things where process needed to be cleaned up or process needed to be created. And he and I would work on a number of those initiatives together. I mean, I'm in the GSF, there was one of the processes that we worked on together was, kind of evaluating and reevaluating the due structure and things like that. It sounds really pretty boring for some people, but again, it was a commitment to creating a process and cleaning up a process that
Yep.
did not unfairly favor or disfavor any party, but it was fair to the outcomes that were desired. The next pillar is integrity and professionalism. Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess by who I am and how I've conducted myself. Again, I can't think of great examples there. Um, and then the other one is emotional intelligence. And there's two subcategories under this one that I thought struck me. And number one is it avoids drama. Um,
Mm.
I'm not terribly dramatic in most situations in life, so I think that helps. But the other one, the last item under the emotional intelligence pillar, it says increases the joy factor of volunteer work.
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
I really like that, and I hope that that spoke to some of the things that the committee reviewed in looking at what I do, because that actually has been somewhat of a focus of mine in not only running my company, but when I work with my clients, when we're like at a strategic planning retreat. I mean, let's be real. That could be an awful experience. It could be a terribly dry, boring experience or stressful experience.
Yeah.
But I've I've always had this mantra that if we can't laugh intentionally a couple times, something's wrong. We're too stressed out. The process is broken. Too many people are angry.
Yes.
Um, this should be fun. And if it's not fun, then why are we doing this? Particularly in a volunteer situation, if it's not fun, why are you doing it? If you don't believe in the mission, why are you doing it? So I always tried to ensure in whatever leadership role I was playing, whether it was at the local level or national or global level, that when I showed up to do what I was there to do, I was easy to work with, easy to interact with, and made it fun for the people involved to achieve the outcomes that we were trying to achieve.
Mm. So many amazing things along that way. Thank you for sharing that too and breaking down those four pillars. I think those four pillars are things that any speaker should look at, and anybody who's serving on a board also should look at. I think we get challenged by all these moments and having a guiding light. But you know, this joy, I want to see if we can talk a little more about this joy. What do you think is your best joy moment or uplifting joy for others inside of your time here at National Speakers Association? Do you have a moment that you might remember about that? I think that is a very unique quality that I don't think I've seen any other award highlight.
Oh, that's a really good question. The highlight of a joy moment. Um,
It's how I make my mark as an interviewer, right?
you know, I'm not the type of person. I mean, I won't bring party hats. I won't bring costumes. I won't do any of that kind of stuff.
That's not you.
For me, it's more of finding the humor in either being self-deprecating or laughing with someone
Yeah.
in the humor of the moment,
Yes.
um, and showing that whatever the issue is, it if we can make it a lighter issue that can be discussed, we're going to come to a better outcome, if that makes any sense. Um, so it's finding the joy in making something attainable, clarifying the vision, clarifying the milestones, clarifying the path forward, clarifying the process, clarifying the metrics, your data, pulling the team together, and really helping people shine in whatever role they're volunteering for, you've asked them to support, and really helping them, find their own success in being a part of a bigger puzzle. So I guess that would be a long answer to the question.
Is there somebody that maybe you want to give a shout out? So I know one of the things that, being a leader on a board often is that we mentor other people into other positions. And I'm just curious if there's somebody who you really appreciated mentoring. You know, I know for me, one of my favorite parts is when you mentor somebody and they actually listen to some of it. They don't have to listen to all of it, but they listen to some of
Mhm.
it, and mostly to it helped them in the goal that they are achieving. So I'm just curious if there's somebody you could give a shout out to.
Um, I don't know that I've mentored anyone in the traditional way.
Sure.
One of the things that I'm going to loop back to a question you asked earlier about, what are some of the attributes or characteristics about John that I so appreciate in um, as good as John is on the stage or in front of the crowd, he is equally, if not more masterful behind the scenes.
I've seen that.
And what that means is that John is an incredible advisor, and he is an incredible um, mentor and coach and strategist behind the scenes to make the person in front look good. And um, he's done that for me. I provide some guidance to him, but in that capacity, that has been my sweet spot as well. And so um, there are individuals who I have provided counsel for and guidance for and strategy for that are in the forefront and
Yes.
deserve all the acclaim that they get because they've done the work. So it's not for me to say who that is because it's their leadership role. But my joy in mentoring has been really more in the advisory capacity behind the scenes,
Yeah.
in helping others read the room, read the people, um, and understand the power and the gifts that they bring to whatever role that they're fulfilling.
Hmm. Amazing, Liz. All right. So I know you don't like surprises.
Oh boy, here we go.
I feel like Sylvie. Can I try this here? Hold on, let me try. Do you trust me, Liz?
Yeah.
All right. This is what's called the speed part of the interview. I've been writing questions while we've been talking, and for you, of course, I'll give you this great rule too. You can say pass to any question that you don't want to answer, but the I'm going to just ask you a series of questions that you'll attempt to answer as quickly as you'd like. Is that okay
Okay.
with you, Liz?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. Who introduced you to NSA?
No one. I saw it in the Denver Post.
Oh, the newspaper. Wow,
hmm
cool.
hmm
Best moment of NSA membership.
Dr. John B. Molidor Award.
Okay, a Molidar process that you think is masterful.
Wow, so many. I'm just going to say the membership structure, the GSF at the time when I was on the board, he redesigned that. hmm
Genius.
hmm
Moment on stage that you love.
The moment for any stage or an NSA stage.
No, any stage.
The moment on stage that I love is when I can see the eyes of the audience members and I can see when they get it, when they start to process of, oh, this is how I could put it into play. And it's a click of I can see they get it, and
Yes.
then I can see I lose them, which is okay because I can see them starting to implement in their brain.
Oh.
That's what I love. That's what I
Oh.
love.
Most interesting board that you know that you can actually say their name.
Most interesting board that I know.
Yeah.
Um, that I can say their name. I'm just going to say the NSA board. Yeah,
Oh,
I can say that name.
you can say that name. Advice to new speakers.
Advice to new speakers. If you don't know what your specialty is, a saying that just struck me like a ton of bricks, I only heard it about 5 years ago, is when you hone in on what you're being paid to speak for an hour to talk about, but if you had to speak for 8 hours, you'd have enough content to cover it. That's what you should be speaking about.
Ooh. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Mhm.
Endless content.
Mhm.
Advice to new board members.
Understand what your role is on the board, meaning, um, what do you need to bring to the board that it doesn't even know it needs yet?
Ooh. Ooh.
Mhm.
Ooh, I wish every board member would say answer that. I might write that
Mhm.
down. Board retreat. I will suggest that to our next board retreat. Thank you so much for that,
Mhm.
Liz.
Mhm.
Uh, what would you say if John was here? Mr. Molidar, Dr. Molidar was here with us. What would you tell him?
I would say Dr. Molidor, because that's what I call him. I love you. He's a tremendous man.
Oh, all right. And the last question of the day. What would you like to tell? We don't know who this person is, by the way, too. What would you like to say to the next Dr. John B. Molidar Award winner?
Thank you for what you've done for NSA and the community and the people you've helped.
Hmm.
Just thank you.
Simplicity at its finest. Liz, thank you again for all your leadership, too. I know that you've probably volunteered hundreds, thousands of hours over your course of your career, and I know I'm the beneficiary of it being an NSA member. So I just want to say thank you. And of course, one more time, congratulations on the Dr. John B. Molidar Award. It is something that you should be proud of.
Thank you. Thank you. I am. I'm very proud of it. Thanks,
Outstanding. I
John.
look forward to seeing you at the next meeting, Liz.
Likewise. Likewise. Thanks, John.
Outstanding. All right, we've been here on the Engaging Virtual Meeting podcast with Liz Weber, the first awardee of the Dr. John B. Molidar Award. And Dr. John B. Molidar, if you're listening to this, right, we just also want to say together, right, we love you. And what an amazing legacy piece that you're going to leave here forever, and you still got lots and lots to do. Your presence every day means something. If you're watching this here on social media, make sure and subscribe, share, like, and comment. In addition to that, if you want all the episodes, go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online. Over 150 episodes and 100 more. One new episode releases every Wednesday. And if you want to learn how to be more engaging in the world, scan this QR code or come to the Engaging Retreat every October. This year will be October 20th through the 22nd. And most of all, if you want to be like Liz, we're going to have to work really hard to get the John B. Molidar Award, but if you want to be like Liz and be the next interviewee here on the Engaging Virtual Meeting podcast, go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, select interview, and you too could be like Liz and be the next guest here on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. We'll see you in 2026.
Though we start